Hello, this is the Private Investigator Experience Podcast, and I'm your host, Phil Little. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you to all of those that are signing up, subscribing, liking, and sharing. This helps the channel a lot. On this show, we talk about the life and cases of a PI and look at events both in the United States and out around the world that can affect us here at home. Those situations that are violent could spill over back in the United States, as we saw after the attack in Israel in October 07, 2023. It wasn't long till on the streets of America and into universities, anti-Semitism spread like wildfire and caused all kinds of havoc. So we need to be aware of what's going on around the world. I'm trying to keep you up to date on some of those things. There's so many things happening out around the world that can affect us here. It would take hours to talk about it all. But just a little update on the New Orleans incident. It appears now that the FBI has the A team in charge that they are still holding that he acted alone. There wasn't any other uh, actors involved. It's also been confirmed that he did go to Egypt in the spring of this last, I think it was April, which I had reported on, but now it has been confirmed. And then he also went to Canada in, I think it was November. So he was traveling around, but that fit with what he was saying that he joined ISIS in the late spring. So there is a lot of things yet to do that they're following up on. And as we look at this situation from a law enforcement background, military, as well as global security, I have organized hundreds of security events around all kinds of venues and operations. It's mind-boggling to me, and I've heard many others, professionals in the field talking about it. That sidewalk was left open. If you do a serious assessment out around the world of events, and we did this prior to the Olympics in Los Angeles in 1984, when a group of us in law enforcement from different agencies and the Secret Service was involved in that, and FBI, and we traveled to Europe to find out what they were doing about terrorism and how they plan for events. And they looked at every possibility. The police there in New Orleans, the police chief, I won't say any more about the nice grandmother that looks like she's the chief of the police or superintendent, as they call it there. But they admitted they never thought about that possibility that someone would go down that sidewalk. If you have been around Europe, as I have, starting back in the 70s and 80s, and I was there a lot when bombs were going off all across Europe, working with my stations there that I had set up to gather intelligence on how they happened, we found so many times that the suspects found little holes to go through and to get inside. Sometimes it was with a vehicle, sometimes it was walking, sometimes it was on a motorcycle. But if I'd been planning, we would have stepped back and looked at that. We got blockage in the street. Okay. Where else could a car come in here? Because we've been warned. It's been out in the public and to law enforcement that cars were being promoted by ISIS to be used as weapons. It was no surprise. So I would have been looking to say, okay, where could a car get in here or a van or a pickup? And if I was looking back from that and looking to the street, okay, that's covered, this side's covered. We've got a sidewalk here that's big enough for a car to go through. So the prudent and the preventive way would have been put barriers, concrete barriers on the sidewalk, leave an opening in the middle of 3 or 4 feet to where pedestrians should go through, but a car could not break through. Well, it didn't happen. And now, of course, it's second guessing it, but I think we need to learn something from that. There'll be more things coming out, but it seems like they've got it nailed down that he was acting alone and there wasn't another the actors that we have to be concerned about. Now let's go to Las Vegas. I think we all should give a big shout out to Kevin McMahill, who is the sheriff there, on his handling of this investigation. Amazing. What a difference with him and not the FBI in charge. He has been transparent. He's been truthful. He says, I can't tell you right now, but I will when I can, if it's something that would affect the investigation. Laying out everything, releasing the documents they're getting off the phones and computers. Now, this is the way investigations should be run. My hat's off to the sheriff and the great officer. And I encourage everyone, put it out there, let it go viral. We thank you, Sheriff Kevin. You've done an awesome job. And then the FBI is lining up. It seems like a different FBI. It's the old FBI that I knew years ago that I was working with. And so they're stepped up and following suit that they're part of the team and they're going to be transparent, as in New Orleans. Now, the other thing I've been working on was about his personal life and his marriage to Jennifer and Davis apparently was falling apart. I think another thing I want to focus on was Matthew Leifelsberg, his condition with what was going on in his life. I hope the military and those in authority and police departments or whatever with special forces units, with tactical units, we have an example here. This man was a decorated warrior. He had been in many places in and out of Afghanistan and other places. It was apparent that he had seen things. I don't doubt at all that in this letter, the original 2-page letter that he sent and wound up on Sean's podcast, he had seen cover-ups. He'd been part of that when civilians had been killed. He was having conscious thoughts of his part in that. It was weighing on him. He had this post-traumatic syndrome that it was obviously he was dealing with these tough issues. And it's amazing that people around him in the military, his commanding officers or those he'd been working with, wouldn't have picked up something. But whatever, I'm not sure. I don't have an answer to this. It's not a simple answer, but there needs to be a mechanism in our military. I've been in the military. I wasn't a warrior in the battle zone, but I had my training and prepared for that. But we need to have a vehicle, some way, something we could develop that can help analyze the men and women that are under stress, that could be having some real mental issues and having thoughts of suicide and carrying the weight of seeing atrocities that get covered up. And I've been in the military, been in law enforcement, and around a lot of things all around the world. I've sat interrogations in Saudi Arabia watching terrorists and get their answers. We have a lot of situations going on around the world. I hope this is a wake-up call. Is coming public with this. And obviously they've uncovered more documents about his writings on his computers and phones. He was really conflicted. And it was obvious from Colorado. He took a long way around, as you might probably know if you've been watching this or not. He came down around through New Mexico and Arizona and up the back way instead of straight down from Colorado to Las Vegas. It seemed like he was dealing with, am I going to take my own life? How can I send a message here that will be heard? Or am I going to maybe try to disappear into Mexico? He had originally had planned, it was uncovered from the documents, that he was going to do something there at the Grand Canyon, at one of the tourist spots that would have a visibility of going off the cliff or something. And for some reason, he passed on that and wound up in Vegas. It's not really clear yet. Why did he wind up in Las Vegas? But they're digging on that. And we know from how the sheriff, Kevin, is operating, we will know what the facts are. But apparently, all of this mental things was going on in him, all the stuff he was carrying. Right around Christmas, he'd come back he was at his home, and his wife accused him of being unfaithful or something going on. and that she was going to end the marriage. He left the house at that time. And it appears like, from things that are coming out, that could have been the final straw that broke the camel's back. That this now having his personal life fall apart, his marriage fall apart, his military career in shambles in his mind because of what he had done. He'd been a part of it. He had allowed this cover ups to go on and not said anything. He was focused on those targets of 125 that he had been a part of and doing the targeting on the 65 that were hit and seeing civilians that were killed. And he had warned that they were there, and that was ignored apparently. And then, according to him, covered up. I don't doubt that. It proved to be more in his mind. But from what I've seen, and I suspect that most of us as citizens, with what we've seen in these last 4 years, particularly, our government, our military being more concerned about DEI and social issues and having people moved into leadership that are, let's say, they should be removed, and focusing more on these DEI events than on having units ready to do battle. Peace through strength. That's, we're going to find in January the 20th, that's going to be back in vogue. It's going to be the mission. So I hope that our military and those who are having warriors work for them in these various high level police department functions. And this is what happens to many law enforcement people. And I've had friends in that when I was in law enforcement, working deep undercover in drug gangs, would destroy their lives, marriages, and families. Sometimes the supervisors could see this stuff coming, but they thought the mission is so great, so big. They've been there so long. They're just ready to the jackpot, and then we'll take them out. So I think we need to change some of our thoughts on. I learned a long time ago in law enforcement and in the private sector, people are more important than things. Many years ago, we had a large undercover operation at the West Coast Detectives, and I hired this undercover agent. Her name was Jackie. I'll never forget her. Out of Miami, that came to Los Angeles, came to work for us, and she was one of those hot pistol ladies, very beautiful and together. One day, after she'd been there about 3 or 4 months, he came and said, "Phil, can I talk to you?" And my door was always open. I said, "Sure, come on in." She sat down and she was dressed elegantly and beautiful smile and looked at me. And she said, "Phil, you know that you're a hypocrite?" And I sat back in my chair and I said, hmm. Now, Jackie had had a conversion. She had come to know the Lord a few months before, changed her life, she said. And thoughts were racing through my mind, sitting there listening to her. Unfortunately, I didn't do sometimes like I do, talk off the top of my head. I looked at her, and then I realized, as my own conscience started to work, that she was truthful, that I had let my professionalism, my drive for being the best, we were called the little FBI. Have a play, want to play on my name. It was just because of what we did, the abilities we had, the tools we had, the results we got. And I lived on that, hey, there was no exception. So I would be pretty hard sometimes, not realizing that I was not being wise with how I treated people. And I looked at Jackie after a few minutes and I said, "Jackie, you're right. You're right. And I'm going to do something about that." And that started a change in my life where I developed, I'm still perfectionist. We were the best and we were going to stay the best. But I discovered that people are more important than things. And I needed to think about that when I was dealing with issues that I thought were around perfection and when things could be done better. So I think stay open. If you're in a leadership role, stay open. Stay open to having someone. And you know what? None of my old guys, I had people there from all levels of law enforcement. I had guys, I was a young guy, I had guys older than I was calling me sir. And I told them very quickly, no, you don't call me sir, I'll call you sir, because served in ways that I never had. And but no, none of them would have ever come in my office and sat down with the president and CEO and said something like that. They might have thought it, but they would have never said it. It took this young lady who was just still in the newness of finding her relationship with God. I know she was used by God to get my attention to help change my life in some areas. So there's a lot going on. We'll be back with more updates. And thank you for liking, sharing, leaving comments, subscribing. And you know the drill, that notification bell for future posts and information that will be coming out. But thank you so much for helping us build this channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing. I love your comments. Let us know what you think or things you would like to know about or your thoughts on anything I'm saying. And check out what I'm saying. If we're talking about something that is going on around in our communities, like I tell people that do their own investigation around their community, particularly around the schools. If we find schools that are teaching the CRT, corrupting our children's minds as young as kindergarten with pornographic and all this material, get involved and let your voice be heard. And then join together with others in your community if the school boards are supporting this and recall them or vote them out and get godly men and women there who are for protecting the children and teaching them education things so they can be equipped for life. And we're having young people today, not only can't read and write and arithmetic, they're not prepared to go into life. And they're going to wind up the stooges of a government that says, oh, you just vote for us. We'll keep giving you some handouts. Well, it's time that we got involved and made a difference. Now, if you also might have a situation in your life that or business that you think, well, could a PI help me? Over the years, I've had people tell me, I wished I'd have met you a year ago because I had the situation and I had no idea a PI could help me. If you have something like that, send it to me. My direct email, it's plittle, PI, 777 at gmail.com. And you can also leave comments on any of the platforms or to that email, plittle, 777 at gmail.com. May God bless you and keep you safe until next time. May God bless your family and may God bless the United States of America.